Good morning. It is Friday, the 13th of September 2019, and Bitcoin looks to me like there's a big surge incoming, but it could be a pretty deep correction too. So let's dig into our indicators and see what they're telling us. First of all, I'll just brush past the disclaimer. You can pause the video to read through this. Next, let's jump right in. And before we get into the charts, I recommend that you head over to intro-to-cryptos.ca and put your email address to receive a free webinar with a complete trading system. And it is sort of the basis of what we're using here in this live stream. Let me jump into the charts and see why I'm thinking there's a big surge coming. First of all, we'll start off with relative strength index, then we'll go through the on balance volume, we'll go through MACD indicator, and we'll go through the Ichimoku cloud for all of these time frames. Got to do it quickly this morning. I've got to run off to yoga. So long as this stays above these levels, we're okay. We're coming into the end of this weekly candle. We've got a couple more days here, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and this will close. And I'm really keen to see what is it ending up doing. Are we going to be on an angle backwards and downwards? Or is this going to hold itself and maybe even angle a little bit more upward? Let's see. I want to go and take a look at the on balance volume. We can see is still declining as it has in the past. We see this decline before the rise, the decline before the rise, the decline before the rise. Since we have the weekly exponential moving average so strong, it really makes me want to consider charts that are similar patterns, with the weekly exponential moving average being really strong. So that limits it to places that are in a massive uptrend. And if that's the case, then I want to err on the side of being prepared for it going higher yet because of this outlook. Let's go on to the next weekly indicator, is the MACD, and this is negative. This is bearish, and that these histograms have grown longer here is confirming more bearish. So this is against the idea of a big breakout, but more in the idea of a retest back. So I'm going to go on to the Ichimoku cloud on the weekly view. It's indistinctive. It could stay bullish for a long time with the prices moving all over. Now let's move into the 12-hour and sweep through the indicators. Nope, daily first. On the daily RSI, I'm seeing a bullish support here. It's not giving me the bearish divergence. And should this relative strength index tick up here, any angle, that's confirming the strength. And that's on the daily. So each of these candles changes as we go, and it's looking good to me from this stance. Of course, by the same token, that if it breaks down below this trend line, that's not good. Every time it breaks below the trend line as it's moving, that's a break to the downside. So we've got a couple clear points, again, that this is holding out to give us indication. I'm going to zoom in. Maybe I'm jumping back and forth too much, and I'll stay on this one indicator and keep zooming in. 12-hour time frame, it's pulling back a little bit, but still holding that bullish bias for me. The 4-hour time frame hasn't broken down to say that it's easing off yet, but a break below these levels is important. Let's continue on. Zoom in on this. This is pretty normal for the RSI to pull back and then spring up during the uptrend. Pull back and then spring up, pull back. And so long as it's on the shorter time frame, so long as the longer time frames are still not breaking and pulling back, this is okay. This should oscillate more than the longer time frames. So if we zoom in now to the 15-minute time frame, it gets less clear to me here, but what I'm looking for is any kind of strong divergence from the price. So if we have the RSI diverging from the price rather than confirming with the price, then that would be something I'm watching out for. It's so middle ground here that if it breaks lower as prices are breaking below this level, that's important for watching these prices to come back to these levels. Let's go on to the on balance volume now. So the on balance volume, I was doing a study on this, looking at the stages of the exponential moving average being crossed this strongly positive and comparing to what was happening in the past. So the divergence of it coming back isn't necessarily bearish, but just part of the gathering process, it seems. Let's continue to zoom in on this. On the daily time frame, it's still not showing the positive volume we're needing for it to continue to give us a good strong bull pattern. So it still needs to come up and give us more strength on this. If we're moving into the closer time frame, now we're looking for any kind of strength off of this side and not really seeing it on the 12-hour, not really seeing it on the 4-hour time frame yet either. And they're really, it's got to flip to the positive here to support that we're going to get that big surge up. Other than that, it just can't happen. And if it is happening, we'll see this volume jump right in, and all of a sudden, it'll just be there. And we've seen that a few times now as it's setting up, where you can see the volume is pretty poor, and all of a sudden, there it is. And all of a sudden, there it is. So should this be breaking higher, I think that all of a sudden, the volume will be there. We'll continue watching, because if this continues to flare negative, that's bearish. Let's zoom in now on the MACD indicator, which starts off bearish on the weekly. It's not confirming on the daily, but it's not bearish. This would have to cross negative for this to turn bearish, and then the histograms would have to start to stretch negative here as well. So for now, this is holding out, undecided, but could flip either way. Now, if we zoom into the 12-hour time frame, maybe we'll start to get some distinction as we get closer here. We have crosses to the positive, and if I zoom in on this, it did cross negative, but it's holding itself, and the histogram is pulling up, which is the first start of a turnaround. It's the first ability for it to cross, and we should see the shorter time frames now already crossed positive if it's going to be. So if I zoom in, so the 4-hour time frame is crossed positive. The histogram is pulling back the last 4 hours. And if we zoom in on the closer time frame, the 1 hour has pulled back. And this is a normal part of the uptrend, as we've seen in the past. It's very normal for this 1 hour to be oscillating while we're in the uptrend now. So to have it pull back isn't necessarily bad, so long as the 4-hour and the 12-hour are confirming through this period, then we'll continue going. But if those 12 and the 4 hours cross to the negative, then that confirms the 1 hour being negative. Let's zoom in on the 4-hour again, the 1 hour, get to close on this. What's going on the 15-minute time frame? A little cross to the positive. This has got to flare positive if we're going to watch this expand. This has got to flare to the positive from where it is now. We're at these double bottom, triple bottom in this. So if this refolds and crosses and goes negative, we're dumping. But if it holds itself and goes from where we are, that's good. Good for the bulls, and we could have a bull party. Let's go into our Ichimoku cloud, and then we'll finish with Bitcoin dominance and a quick look at what's going on the alts. In the daily view, the Ichimoku cloud is still a sell signal. It's a little twist to the positive here with the blue line crossing above the red, but not definitive for sure. This is still sell signal. The 12-hour time frame has not crossed to the positive yet. In fact, it's looking a little bit, if the blue line crosses below the red, that's bearish. If this green line crosses below these things and that twists negative, other than that, we're floating in the middle and hands off, really. It's not giving a direction yet on this time frame. Zoom into the 4-hour time frame. Still no direction here. We're in the cloud. We're twisting negative, crossing positive. Nothing. The 1-hour time frame is positive. This did cross up through the cloud. We did have the crossover positive. Everything here is a buy signal on the 1-hour time frame. So long as it stays above this, so long as it doesn't crest negative, and that doesn't cross, we're all good. It's all positive on the 1-hour time frame. So I was going to say that the 15-minute should be positive as well, but it is making it less certain again because it's come back through the cloud here. And that's not definitive because the 15-minute goes in and through the cloud back and forth. But the 1 hour is positive, the 15 minutes negative, the rest of them are negative. It is not decisive. This is not giving us a clear view. The only thing that gives me the big bullish bias is not the indicators. They're not really being clear here for me today. So I'm really keen to come back in this over time to see what those indicators end up playing out. For me, it's the nested 1, 2, 3 patterns building up here that really are it for me. Still, to have this nested 1, 2, 3, nested 1, 2, 3 setting up here, a larger 1, 2, 3, it is the place to be laying out some risk. And of course, how you lay out that risk determines the difference between your success and your failure, even so much as doing market orders versus doing limit orders is going to skew the results in your favor or against your favor over time. So the way you're laying out your position sizing as you're setting up your positions is key for your long-term success, no matter which way this is going. So as it's making these 1, 2, 3 formations, it's just my time. And 6 out of 10 times, 7 out of 10 times, the 1, 2, 3 formations fail. So your risk control is probably more important than the entry point. Looks like something on wheels. So let's go and take a look at Bitcoin against the major alts. So we can see that generally Bitcoin is making this consolidation and a tip growing at this end and not a tip failing. It's got to fail down now below 9,800 before it's turning my opinion to a bearish view. And with the altcoins all easing back as Bitcoin is gaining this pressure, it feels to me like the alts are going to take a big dump down. And if we're looking at Bitcoin dominance, it is continuing in its uptrend. There's some really important levels that we're coming up to, and we're not going to have altcoin season until Bitcoin dominance comes down below these levels. It's got to break this top formation. But so long as it's going up, we're in the uptrend for the Bitcoin dominance. And we can see that in our patron bull market watch spreadsheet. You can become a patron supporter and have access to this amazing spreadsheet telling us which of the alts that are going to take off first. But we can see here that the neutral stance has pulled back and ticked up just a little bit. Our fails have come back a little bit. So it's still not turning around to bullish, but we can see that the bottom isn't crashing out of them yet. If this red line scores upward strongly, then we know that Bitcoin dominance is crushing the alts yet further. And if this neutral stance grows and the alert status grows, then I would say Bitcoin is on its edge to be dumping further as the alts are climbing. But for me right now, this is still feeling like it's going to head up, even though we've got, I would say, a head and shoulders top formation potential here, where we've got a shoulder here, we've got the head, and we've got a shoulder. A break below that is really important for sure. So we'll see how this plays out overall. Indecisive, could be both ways. It's right on the edge. It's right the place to be making decisions and keep your risk control rules close at hand. We'll see how it plays out, and I'm going to sign off for this episode. Thanks for tuning in. Be sure to hit the thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already. I'll see you on tomorrow's episode of the 24 Hours of Bitcoin.